Ford expects a loss of $3 billion this year from its sales of electric cars. But unfortunately for Ford, that figure will be much higher. Much higher. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Ford's Model E electric vehicle manufacturing unit arm of the company. It has two different arms, the internal combustion engine side, the electric side. Electric side are making massive losses. The internal combustion engine side are still making profits, propping up the EV development side. Now, it makes sense to do it this way. I've believed for a while now that what would eventually happen is Ford would simply declare bankruptcy on the internal combustion engine unit once they're no longer using that unit, once people are no longer buying those vehicles, and simply start using the Model E unit. So what it will do is siphon profitable internal combustion engine unit until it no longer is profitable. And then, of course, those employees would just kind of go away and Ford would simply work on the new unit. Now, I could be wrong on that. Let me know what you think on that strategy. Ford made a pretty big loss last year. However, they released their first quarter earnings on the 2nd of May, posting a net income of $1.8 billion, which is a great reversal on its $3.1 billion loss a year earlier. First quarter revenue was $41.5 billion, which is an increase of 20% from the same period a year ago on shipments approaching 1.1 million vehicles. Now, the majority of those cars, the majority of that profit is coming from the United States. Ford's decision to focus on its US market is a good strategy. It's being decimated in China, along with GM, Honda, Mitsubishi, Mazda, all the automakers, pretty much all of them that are not from China, or Tesla are being decimated. So Ford's strategy to focus on North America makes total sense. Now, sales this year are a 9% increase on the same quarter last year. And Ford ended the quarter with margins of 8.1%, up 1.4 percentage points. But of course, that's not on EVs. Now, here's the challenge for Ford. EV production is difficult. They're making enormous losses, around $20,000 per car. They've therefore increased the price of the electric pickup truck, the Ford Lightning, 5 times. Ford Mustang Mach-E, they did the same. Well, not 5 price increases, but they increased the price significantly versus 1 year ago. However, they've been forced, as a result of Tesla's discounting, to discount the Mach-E again. That's just happened within the last week. CEO Jim Farley said that the first quarter of organizing around and running the company on behalf of distinct customer groups, Ford Blue, Ford Model E, and Ford Pro, produced solid operating results and a glimpse of the promise of its Ford Plus growth plan. However, not all of Ford's new divisions were in the black in Q1, of course. Model E electric vehicle business unit, which Ford says it operates like a startup, posted a loss of $722 million, which is actually not that bad if you think about it as a startup compared to other companies such as Chinese ones that make EVs only, who have lost more than that. The Ford Blue gasoline-powered business posted a $2.6 billion profit, while the Ford Pro commercial vehicle unit made $1.36 billion. But keep in mind, these vehicles could be very problematic for Ford in the future because Ford has admitted to this fact. It is a reality. Ford spend more money on recalls and warranty customer fixes than any other car company in the world. And they've actually led in that department for around 6 straight years. That could be a bit of a hangover. Well, eventually Ford's electric vehicle department will hit profitability and it will become their dominant vehicle product. But in that point in history, Ford will have a debt hanging over its head. Not only the debt that they already have, which is more than $100 billion, but also the debt of having to fix all those warranties, all those issues with their internal combustion engines, which they do make a profit on today, but then they make a loss on those in the future. That's going to be a challenge for them. Ford reaffirmed its full-year guidance as it recovers from global supply chain shortages, noting that it expects losses from the Model EV business to rise nearly 50% to $3 billion this year. Now, I think this is an underestimation of massive proportions. It's extremely unlikely this would be true. The reason being, Ford have lost a quarter of that already, right? They're simply extrapolating that figure. So they're saying, we lost nearly $750 million in the first quarter on EVs. So therefore, times that by 4, you get $3 billion, right? Is that realistic? I mean, Ford lost $722 million on the sale of 10,000 cars. I mean, yes, they sold a few more in other countries, but the majority of their cars were sold in North America. They sold very few EVs. Ford lost way over $20,000 on every single EV they sold. If they sell twice as many as they say they will over the next 3 quarters, in fact, they're saying they're going to triple sales over the next 3 quarters, that would mean they'd have to be making about 80% less loss than they are today on those vehicles. Now, I don't know how Ford plans on doing that. They haven't outlined that strategy. They're going to use LFP battery cells. That will help. But at the same time, that is not going to cover the cost. It's not going to cover $20,000. So if they start selling twice as many EVs, which is their plan, 3 times as many EVs, then their losses are not going to just simply disappear so that they only lose $3 billion. They're going to increase. I think Ford's losses on their electric vehicle department will probably hit around $5 billion this year, which is okay. Not a problem with that, but it's more about being honest here and transparent. It doesn't seem statistically possible that they would lose the same amount in every single quarter if they're selling twice as many of the vehicles that they're losing all the money on. Ford previously said it is investing heavily in the Model E to develop innovative electric vehicles along with breakthrough digital capabilities for deployment across the company's entire product line. Why are they trying to use these breakthrough digital products? Everyone's doing this now. They want to sell subscriptions to you. They say they'll make GM say this, Mercedes, they're all saying it. They want to sell subscriptions to you and they believe they can make billions of dollars by doing that. So they're focusing on digital products and services that they can sell you as a subscription package. Ford is doing that with Blue Cruise. So you can now get Blue Cruise for free for I think 90 days. They get you into it and then you go, okay, this is good, I like it. And Ford says, okay, your 90 days is up now. You now have to pay for this feature. Now, I'm not targeting Ford here because like I said, everyone is doing this except Tesla, but everyone else is doing this. So I can sort of see why they think that they need to focus on this because that's where they think they can make money. They believe margins on EVs will be very, very slim. So, I mean, Mary Barra has said the same thing. Margins are slim on EVs. How do we make money out of the product? This is the way we can do it. Sell subscriptions like Netflix. Production interruptions of the Mustang Mach-E and the Ford F-150 Lightning also contributed to the Q1 2023 loss for Model E. In fact, that's what the media has said, that's what Ford have said, but that's not actually true at all. Production interruptions of the Mach-E and the Ford F-150 Lightning electric pickup truck actually meant Ford lost less money than they otherwise would have. I can't believe that. I mean, I'm seeing this reporting everywhere. This is the exact quote here. I'm not going to say who wrote this. Production interruptions of a loss-making product of the Mach-E and F-150 Lightning contributed to the Q1 2023 loss. So if they'd sold twice as many EVs, would they have suddenly have lost less money? It doesn't add up. That doesn't make any sense. Maybe their margins would have been slightly improved if they'd been able to produce more EVs on the same production lines. They still would have lost. They would have lost more money, not less. It doesn't add up. Anyhow, Ford says they had to make industrial changes at the plant in Mexico, and they say that those changes will nearly double Mach-E manufacturing capacity. And in addition to that, they had to isolate and address a battery issue for the Lightning before it became a problem for customers. You've probably seen a few of them. A few of them were engulfed in flames and burnt themselves to the ground, and therefore it gave ammunition to anti-EV people to say, told you EVs burn to the ground. Unfortunately, that has happened, but that has been fixed. Besides boosting capacity for the Mustang Mach-E and the F-150 Lightning, Ford Model E will also build its next generation electric pickup at the Blue Oval City complex, now under construction in Tennessee. The company is also transforming an existing operation in Ontario to produce batteries and next generation electric vehicles. And they're constructing and staffing an LFP battery plant in Michigan. Now, that LFP battery plant will take a couple of years to get off the ground, but that will be the biggest thing that Ford will have to reduce prices of their cars. It's a massive advantage. In fact, it will give Ford an enormous strategic advantage over their direct competitor, their biggest competitor in the world, which of course is General Motors. General Motors don't have any plans to produce LFP batteries. LFP batteries are probably approximately 40% cheaper than the so-called Ultium batteries that General Motors produces. That is a huge strategic advantage. Unless GM pivot towards something like that, then I would suggest to you they'll be in trouble. It's going to be an insurmountable barrier because Tesla, Rivian, and Ford all plan on using massive amounts of lithium iron phosphate batteries, which are significantly cheaper than Ultium battery cells. Ford plans to achieve a global production run rate of 600,000 electric vehicles by the end of 2023, which is a huge jump over their current rate. It doesn't seem realistic, but hopefully they can do it. They're saying they'll be able to get to more than 2 million by the end of 2026. The all-electric Explorer crossover unveiled in March that will be built and sold in Europe will contribute to that. However, that is an MEB Volkswagen Group product. I don't think Ford wants to sell too many of those because there's very little chance they're going to be making a profit on those. They'll be competing directly with Tesla China, with Tesla's Gigafactory in Germany, with Chinese-made cars from all these other brands. And that's an MEB expensive product. It's not probably a product that you want to focus on if you're Ford. Ford no longer breaks down results by regions, but by its new business units, and Model E includes Ford EVs from all global markets. So it's a bit tricky to analyze that, but Ford are basically pulling out of Europe. A little bit like General Motors, they've just fired 3,000 staff, shutting down factories. Ford are probably likely to be almost non-existent in Europe by 2035 when the electric car sales rules begin to change. Now, the thing is here to take away is some of this is challenging. Yeah, Ford are going to spend a lot of money. Volkswagen Group, to give you some context on this, they were spending $200 billion before the end of the decade on EVs. That's nothing compared to what Ford are losing today. And Ford do have a pretty big advantage here. They're clearly realizing that China is a loss. Just got a sunk cost. Got to get rid of it. They're focused on North America. That's obvious, right? That is clearly where they make their profit. F-150 sales, pickup truck sales in North America. That's where they make their profit. That is the right strategy. They're going to use lithium iron phosphate cells that they basically make themselves licensed from CATL. They'll be able to make those very, very affordably in the US because they'll get incentives from the government. It's actually a very smart strategy. Most of Ford's sales right now, more than 50% are in North America, and that is a good thing because companies are not taking it seriously. Toyota, Honda, Mazda, Nissan, Subaru, none of them are taking the future of cars seriously in North America. So Ford can simply take a large percentage of sales away from them, which they will do over the next decade. I guarantee that will happen. Now, of course, Tesla, GM, and Ford will continue to take sales away from them. It won't just be Ford doing this. It'll be interesting to see. But there will be 3 big players, I believe, within the next 5 years in the US, and it will be those 3. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thank you for watching.